What's up, YouTube? My name is Isaiah Rivera. I have a 50.5-inch vertical, which is the highest recorded vertical on planet Earth. That's crazy, right? Well, a big reason I was able to do this is because I knew about something called periodization. Periodization is planning your training so that you can peak at a specific time of the year to jump your absolute highest. Or if you're in a different sport, to play at your best. If you're running, to run your fastest. Now I'm gonna be showing you guys the specifics of periodization. So after watching this video, you're gonna understand roughly how to manufacture a good training program for an entire training year, okay? The first thing you have to understand is the difference between a microcycle, a mesocycle, and a macrocycle. The easiest way to think about it is a microcycle is 1 week of training, a mesocycle is about a month of training, and a macrocycle is just a grouping of multiple months of training put together. The goal is to be jumping your absolute highest and performing your best at the end of one macrocycle. Now, we have 4 different types of periodization here: short, long, linear, and undulating. The next 2 terms you have to understand is volume and intensity. Intensity is what percent of your max you're doing. Volume is how much of the thing you're doing. So think of it like sets and reps. For plyos, the intensity varies on how hard you're trying, the speed of the movement, how high you're dropping from, how fast you're running. Now, when you design a macrocycle, a mesocycle, a macrocycle, you're going to have a specific goal in mind. You should always be training with a goal. Usually, the goal lies on a continuum of specificity. So the goal is either more general, or the goal can be more specific, or somewhere in between. And then when you zoom even farther in, the specificity goes on a continuum, right? It's a nice smooth curve up from general to specific. Short just means that microcycle to microcycle, the training goal is going to change, and it can even change within session to session within a microcycle. Those are variations of short types of periodization. Long forms of periodization just means that the goal changes month to month. Now, to understand linear versus undulating, that's just explaining the relationship between volume and intensity. Generally, in linear periodization, volume and intensity goes from low intensity to high intensity and high volume to low volume. And then these numbers right here represent the training week or the macrocycle. So week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Week 1, we have the highest volumes and the lowest intensities, and at week 4, we have the highest intensities and the lowest volumes. Undulating periodization, this number still represents the microcycle. So in microcycle 1, we have our own kind of linear periodization scheme right there. Then you start over on microcycle number 2, so week 2, you start over again with high volume and low intensity, and then go to high intensity, low volume, and you just repeat that process. So it's undulating. Think of undulating like a wave, right? It's a wave. Well, it's actually a wave like this. Boom, wave, 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 wave. So in short, linear periodization, we're gonna have a different goal each session in a training week. So day 1 might be max strength focus, day 2 might be power work, day 3 we might just do plyos. And since it's linear periodization, during week 1, we're gonna do all that work, but we're gonna do it at high volume and low intensities, and by week 3, we're gonna be at really high intensities and low volumes. Then you could do short undulating. So in short undulating, again, session 1, max strength, session 2, power, session 3, just plyos. We start the week at high volumes and low intensities and end the week at high intensities and low volumes, and then we just repeat that again on week 2, then week 3, and so on and so forth. So that would be really complex, and you can combine these as much as you want. But that is not all. So bam, we're adding more variables to the mix. So now we have 3 more types of periodization: sequential, concurrent, and conjugate. So these letters right here, this just represents max strength, power, and elasticity. Strength, power, elasticity. We no longer describe training cycles like this at THP because we do a mix of everything, foreshadowing to conjugate method. But for the sake of explaining this, it's really easy to just think of your training goals in these terms, but this is very outdated way of looking at training. We just look at it on a continuum from general to specific. So, sequential periodization, it just means we focus on one quality at a time in sequence. Month 1, we might focus on max strength. Month 2, we might focus on power. Month 3, we might focus on elasticity. Concurrent periodization, we focus on all qualities at the same time in equals amounts of volume. The size of the circle represents how much emphasis we're putting on each one. So as you can see, they're the same size here. We're putting the same amount of emphasis on all qualities in concurrent periodization. So here we have week 1, week 2, week 3, all the same. The emphasis stays the exact same. And with each of these terms, you can combine the terms from the previous board. So you could do long linear sequential periodization, or you could do short undulating concurrent periodization, and have the most complicated, intense training possible that's probably going to leave you hurt unless you're a freak athlete, and then you're going to transform your athleticism. Now, there's also a different type of concurrent periodization called emphasized concurrent. And think of all these circles stay the same, assuming this is short, right? Week 1, we might have a big circle here, same amount of volume, same amount of volume, more volume here. Week 2, because we're in short periodization, same volume here, big volume here. Long concurrent periodization, we would have month 1 here, month 2, month 3. So the downsides of concurrent periodization is you can get hurt because you're not decreasing the volume for the other qualities. You're just keeping everything the same. This is where conjugate comes in. Conjugate is really similar to concurrent, but you emphasize one quality and then decrease the emphasis on the other 2 qualities. However, you're still training all of them, so you're able to retain those qualities while doing the training, right? So this is a long form periodization, because we're having one focus on month 1, one focus on month 2, one focus on month 3, or mesocycle 3, mesocycle 2, mesocycle 1. And then we just shift the emphasis and decrease the emphasis on the other 2, mesocycle to mesocycle. So at THP, we use long conjugate sequence systems. So we do conjugate, it's long, so we focus on a different quality, mesocycle to mesocycle, and it's sequential. We focus on each quality and sequence to each other. All right. So if you want us to implement these long conjugate sequence systems in your training, go to THPstrength.com and use the code THP for 10% off your first month. And if you learned anything new, which hopefully you did, go click that like button. It helps the channel tremendously, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.